Some countries you visit to rest. Some countries you visit to discover. And there is one country, when you set foot there, something inside you changes forever. In the summer of 2026, the eyes of the world will turn here, as Mexico becomes one of 3 nations hosting the largest World Cup in history. But behind the packed stadiums lies a country almost no outsider truly understands. Mexico is not a destination. It is a collision between a civilization thousands of years old and a modern world trying to erase it. Where pyramids larger than Giza still stand, mostly unexcavated, inside ancient forest. This is Mexico, the land time never forgot. Mexico is the world's 13th largest country, larger than all of Western Europe. Yet no outsider truly understands it. To the north, it borders the United States along a 3,145-kilometer line, one of the busiest borders on the planet. To the south, it borders Guatemala and Belize, where the rainforests of Central America begin. To the west lies the Pacific Ocean. To the east, the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. 2 oceans, 2 seas, and 2 neighboring countries that could not be more different. 130 million people live here, and no single ethnicity holds an absolute majority. There is no simple definition of Mexican. They are descendants of the Aztec, Maya, Spanish, African, Chinese, Japanese, Lebanese, and dozens of other groups who met on this land over the past 500 years. Mexico holds 35 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, more than any country in the Western Hemisphere. Nahuatl, the language of the Aztec, is still spoken by over 1.5 million people today. And Mexico defines itself not by what it has, but by what cannot be taken from it. Look at the map of Mexico and ask, why does this country resemble no other? The answer lies in the terrain. Mexico is the intersection of 2 continents, 3 oceans, and at least 2 ecosystems that have absolutely nothing to do with each other. To the north is the Chihuahuan Desert, dry, punishing land, where temperatures swing from -15 Celsius in winter to 48 in summer. To the northwest is Baja California, a narrow 1,200-kilometer peninsula running down the Pacific coast, cut off from the rest of the country by the blue waters of the Sea of CORTEZ. At the center is the Mexican Plateau, a vast terrace at 2,000 meters elevation where the country's largest cities sit, sheltered by 2 Sierra Madre ranges like natural walls. Cutting through the center is the volcanic belt, the Cordillera Neovolcanica, a chain of active volcanoes running east to west, because Mexico sits at the junction of 3 major tectonic plates. To the south are the tropical forests of Chiapas and the flat, hot, humid Yucatan Peninsula, where the world's largest underground river system flows beneath limestone. To the east, the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. To the west, the Pacific. That geographic diversity does not merely create scenery. It created communities isolated for centuries, and from that, cultures that exist nowhere else on Earth. Mexico's geography is not the backdrop of the story. It is the main character. Every journey through Mexico begins here in one of the largest, most complex, and most fascinating cities on Earth. 22 million people live in the Mexico City metropolitan area. But the first thing you need to know is not that number. The first thing you need to know is Mexico City is sinking. Not metaphorically. Literally into the ground. Physically, some neighborhoods having sunk over 10 meters in the past century. The reason? The city was built on the drained bed of an ancient lake. The Aztecs built their capital Tenochtitlan on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. When the Spanish arrived and destroyed it, they drained the lake and built their city directly on top of Tenochtitlan's ruins. Today, when you walk through the Zócalo, the Central Plaza, one of the world's largest, you are walking through three simultaneous layers of history: the ancient lake below, Tenochtitlan above the lake, and the Spanish city above Tenochtitlan. The Catedral Metropolitana stands just beside it, the largest cathedral in Latin America, built using stones taken from demolished Aztec temples. The conqueror built his cathedral from the bones of what he conquered. Nowhere in the world is history displayed so directly and without apology as in Mexico City. The National Museum of Anthropology in Chapultepec Park is the greatest museum of indigenous American civilizations ever built. It does not merely hold artifacts. It holds evidence that before Europe, there were things here that equaled any civilization in history. And Xochimilco, the floating canal network south of the city, is the only surviving fragment of the Aztec lake world. Brightly painted Trajanera boats carry families, lovers, and tourists through canals that 700 years ago were the arteries of an empire of 5 million people. Mexican history did not begin in 1521, when Cortez conquered Tenochtitlan. It begins at least 10,000 years ago when the first arrivals of the Great Migration settled this land and began domesticating corn, the crop that today feeds billions worldwide. The Olmec Mesoamerica's first complex civilization emerged around 1200 BCE. They carved colossal heads from basalt weighing up to 40 tons, transported from quarries hundreds of kilometers away, without wheels, without draft animals. The Maya to the south and southeast built cities with sewage systems, astronomical observatories precise enough to calculate solar eclipses centuries in advance, and invented zero independently from the rest of the world. The Zapotec, Mixtec, Toltec, Tarascan, each civilization a separate world, developing in parallel and sometimes in conflict with one another across thousands of years. The Aztec appeared latest in the 13th century, but quickly became the dominant empire. In 1521, Hernán Cortés and 600 Spaniards brought down that empire in 2 years. This was not merely a military victory. The Spanish brought disease, smallpox, measles, influenza, against which indigenous people had zero immunity. Within a century, Mexico's indigenous population fell from roughly 25 million to approximately 1 million. This is one of the greatest demographic catastrophes in human history. After 300 years of colonization, Mexico declared independence in 1821. But independence did not bring peace. The Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848 cost Mexico over 50% of its territory. including all of what is today: California, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. Land that Mexicans had lived on for generations suddenly became foreign territory overnight. The Mexican Revolution from 1910 to 1920, 10 years of civil war, over 1 million dead, ultimately produced the Constitution of 1917, one of the most progressive constitutions in the world at the time. Land rights for farmers, labor rights for workers, mandatory free education. Mexican history is a chain of losses, rebirths, and never-ending struggles to define itself. And that resilience is what you feel the moment you step off the plane. Just 50 kilometers from downtown Mexico City lies a place that even the Aztecs who built Mesoamerica's greatest empire did not understand. Teotihuacan. The Aztecs found this city already abandoned for centuries. They did not know who built it. They did not know the language of its builders. They did not know why it was abandoned, so they called it the place where the gods were created and made pilgrimages here. We, with all our modern archaeological technology, do not know much more than the Aztecs did. The Pyramid of the Sun is the world's third largest structure by volume, after the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Pyramid of Cholula nearby. It was built around 100 CE, without wheels, without draft animals, without iron, without any metal tools whatsoever. The Avenue of the Dead, the main boulevard stretching over 4 kilometers, is precisely aligned with the Pleiades star cluster and the movements of Venus. Achievable only by people with profound astronomical knowledge. At its peak, Teotihuacan was one of the world's largest cities, with a population exceeding 200,000 larger than any European city at the same moment in history. The city's walls were once painted brilliant red, the color of blood and the rising sun. Then, around the 7th century CE, the city was burned by the hands of those who lived within it and abandoned. No sign of external war. No recorded natural disaster. Only that one day, the people decided to burn the palaces of the ruling class and leave. Perhaps this was the first revolution in Mesoamerican history. And when you stand on top of the Pyramid of the Sun at dawn, watching the first light touch those ancient stones, you understand why the Aztecs believed this was where the gods were created. And you also understand why the question is more fascinating than any answer. Every year, from November to March, something that cannot be fully explained by science happens in the Oyamel fir forests of Michoacán. Hundreds of millions of monarch butterflies fly here. They come from Canada, from the northern United States, a journey of over 4,000 kilometers. And here is the thing that cannot be explained. The butterfly flying to Michoacán has never been here before. This journey takes 4 to 5 butterfly generations to complete. The butterfly you see resting on an Oyamel branch in Michoacán is the great-great-grandchild of the one that left. Not a single butterfly in that chain ever flew the complete journey. Yet each generation knows exactly which direction to fly, when to stop, and ultimately, which exact forest to find. They arrive in November. The Day of the Dead is November 1st and 2nd. No one knows if this is a coincidence. The monarch population has declined over 80% in 30 years because of pesticides, because of habitat loss, because of climate change, disrupting the flowering of the plants they depend on. This wonder, sustained through millions of years of evolution, is being threatened by a few decades of industrial farming. Michoacan is the only place on Earth these butterflies return to. And we do not yet know how much longer that will last. From many parts of Mexico City, on clear days, you can see it. A perfectly shaped volcanic cone, snow-capped, with a plume of smoke rising continuously from its crater. Popocatépetl, Mexicans affectionately call it Popo, is one of the world's most dangerous active volcanoes. It stands 5,426 meters tall and sits less than 70 kilometers from downtown Mexico City. 25 million people live within its potential impact zone. Since reactivating in 1994 after 70 years of dormancy, Popo has erupted with smoke, ash, and lava thousands of times. Tens of thousands of people within 12 kilometers have been evacuated multiple times. But each time, they return. This is not recklessness. This is a relationship between people and volcano built across thousands of years, a kind of faith and love that Western people find difficult to understand. In Aztec mythology, Popocatépetl is the warrior Popoca, eternally guarding the body of his love, Princess TEOTIHUACAN, the snow-covered peak beside him. To this day, local people still place flowers and food on the mountain on festival days. They do not regard Popo as a hazard. They regard it as an ancestor. Popocatépetl is a reminder that there are things in this world beyond human control. And Mexicans, after thousands of years living alongside volcanoes, earthquakes, and storms, have learned to live with that in a way most of us have never had to. There is one thing about Mexico that most of the world gets completely wrong. That thing is Dia de los Muertos. People see the colorful skulls, the elaborate costumes, the marigolds, and think this is Mexico's Halloween. It is not. Halloween is about fear of the dead. Dia de los Muertos is about love for the dead. On November 1st and 2nd, Mexicans do not celebrate death. They celebrate continuation. The idea is your loved ones did not vanish. They are simply somewhere else. And in these 2 days, that boundary becomes thinner. Families build ofrendas altars with photographs of the deceased, food they loved when alive, objects they treasured, tequila if they liked tequila. Marigolds cempasúchil are scattered in paths from the grave to the home, so the soul can find its way. This tradition has roots over 3,000 years deep in indigenous belief recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. But Mexico does not have just one festival. Guelaguetza in Oaxaca, a Zapotec festival predating the Aztec, is where indigenous communities from across Oaxaca gather, each bringing their own distinct music, dance, and traditional costume. Carnival in Veracruz, where African, Spanish, and indigenous people have met for 400 years, is music that cannot be categorized, simultaneously African, Caribbean, and Mexican. In Mexico, festivals are not occasions to escape from ordinary life. They are moments when a community affirms to itself, we are still here, we are still ourselves, and that is worth celebrating. In 2010, UNESCO inscribed Mexican cuisine on the list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. This was not recognition of deliciousness, but of a complete knowledge system passed down across generations. Corn is not merely an ingredient, it is a philosophical foundation. The Maya believed humans were created from corn, that we are corn that walks. Mexico is where corn was first domesticated in human history, approximately 9,000 years ago. Mole is what makes you understand UNESCO's recognition. A family of sauces with over 30 ingredients, taking days to prepare. Oaxaca alone is famous for 7 distinct types of mole. And the taco reduced by the world to fast food is actually a culinary system with hundreds of variations. Each region is its own culinary language. Birria tacos of Jalisco, cochinita pibil of Yucatan, tlayudas of Oaxaca. Mexican cuisine is not food. It is living memory. There are cities in the world where, when you arrive, you feel time operating by different rules. Oaxaca is one of them. This city sits at 1,500 meters altitude in a valley surrounded by mountains, and it is Mexico's true cultural capital, not Mexico City. This is the center of Zapotec civilization, the people who built Monte Alban, one of the first cities in North America, over 2,500 years ago, and that civilization is still alive. Over 16 indigenous languages are still spoken in the state of Oaxaca. Monte Alban stands on a hilltop overlooking the entire valley, designed so the Zapotec could simultaneously observe astronomy, control territory, and display power. Hirve el Agua, 70 kilometers from the city, is where calcium-rich mineral water flows over cliffs and petrifies into waterfall shapes, creating the strangest natural sculptures you have ever seen. Oaxacan food, Oaxacan dark chocolate, fried chapulines, grasshoppers, tlayudas. Mole negro is living proof that Mexican food in its purest form is nothing like what you find at a Tex-Mex restaurant. Oaxaca is at the dangerous intersection between becoming a museum of itself and continuing to live. Investors, boutique hotels, and wealthy tourists are turning the city into a recreation of itself. And the indigenous people, those who created the things tourists come to see, can increasingly no longer afford to live in the city of their ancestors. This is the contradiction of every beautiful place in the age of mass tourism. And in Oaxaca, it hurts more, because what is being threatened is living culture, not merely scenery. In the beliefs of the Olmec, Maya, and Aztec, no animal stands above the jaguar. Not the eagle, though the eagle is the national symbol. Not the serpent, though the serpent appears everywhere in indigenous art. The jaguar. For indigenous Mesoamerican people, the jaguar is not an animal. It is the deity controlling darkness, the world of the dead, rain, and the fertility of the land. Aztec royal warriors were called jaguar warriors, those who wore jaguar skin into battle. The jaguar is the largest cat in the Americas and has the strongest bite force relative to body size of any big cat in the world. Unlike tigers or lions, jaguars love water. They swim expertly, live near rivers, and often hunt caiman's prey that most other animals avoid entirely. Mexico has roughly 4,000 to 5,000 wild jaguars. That sounds like a lot. It is not. Just 100 years ago, jaguars ranged across the entire territory of Mexico from north to south. Today, they are concentrated only in remaining forest fragments cut apart by highways, farms, and settlements. The Jaguar Corridor, the most ambitious conservation project in the Americas, is attempting to reconnect those forest fragments from Mexico all the way to Argentina. But that corridor is being severed every day. And the question is not whether Mexico wants to protect jaguars. The question is, who has the right to decide government, international conservation organizations, or the local communities still sharing the forest with them and regarding them as ancestors? Moving south, near the Guatemala border, is the state of Chiapas, the land holding Mexico's deepest contradictions. Chiapas is Mexico's poorest state. Chiapas is also Mexico's most biodiverse state, with over 12 indigenous languages still alive more than any other state. This is the paradox you see everywhere in the world. The places richest in resources are often where people are poorest. Sumidero Canyon. Cañón del Sumidero is a geological wonder just 15 minutes drive from the city of Tuxtla Gutiérrez. Sheer cliffs rise up to 1,000 meters above the Grijalva River below. Looking up from a boat, you see a narrow strip of blue sky above and vertical rock on both sides, one of Mexico's most awe-inspiring landscapes. In this canyon live Morlet's crocodiles, spider monkeys, harpy eagles, toucans, and hundreds of other species. But Chiapas is not just nature. On January 1st, 1994, the exact day NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, took effect. An armed uprising began in Chiapas. The Zapatistas' masked Maya warriors seized 4 major towns. Their message was clear and direct: NAFTA will kill Mexican farmers. Cheap U.S. corn would flood in, prices would collapse, and millions of farming families would lose their livelihoods. They were right. Over 30 years later, the Zapatistas still control areas of Chiapas, an autonomous parallel government existing within the Mexican state. Chiapas is where questions about globalization, indigenous rights, and land sovereignty are not academic theory. They are the daily life of millions of people. Deep in the tropical forest of Chiapas, 200 kilometers east of Sumidero Canyon, lies a city the Maya built, abandoned, and the forest swallowed for over 1,000 years. Palenque. The first people to rediscover it in the 18th century thought they were looking at strange hills. Then they realized those hills were moving because they were not hills. They were temples, completely covered by vegetation. Palenque was built from the 5th to 9th century CE. It is one of the most refined and elegant Maya cities ever to exist. Its temples are not as massive as TEOTIHUACAN or Chichen Itza. They are more refined, perfect proportions, relief carvings, so detailed they narrate the complete history of the royal dynasty. In 1952, archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luhilier noticed a strangely heavy stone in the floor of the Temple of the Inscriptions. He lifted the stone, and beneath it was a staircase descending deep into the pyramid. After 4 years of excavation, he reached the tomb of King Pakal, who ruled Palenque for 68 years, from 615 to 683. Pakal's sarcophagus lid is one of the greatest sculptures humanity has ever created. It depicts Pakal falling into the mouth of the death god and simultaneously being reborn as a corn plant, a double image capturing the Maya's entire philosophy of life and death in a single work. And when morning mist settles over Palenque's temples, when small waterfalls run through the surrounding forest, when the howl of monkeys echoes from the distance, you understand exactly why the Maya chose this precise place to build their city. In the cloud forests of Chiapas and Oaxaca, at altitudes between 1,500 and 3,000 meters, lives a bird that the Maya and Aztec regarded as more sacred than all other birds: the quetzal. Its plumage cannot be fully described in words: iridescent emerald shifting to gold in changing light, with a tail reaching 1 meter long that can extend twice the bird's body length. In the ancient Mesoamerican world, quetzal feathers were more valuable than gold. Only kings, princes, and high priests were permitted to wear headdresses made from quetzal feathers. The god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is one of the most important deities of Aztec mythology, symbolizing the union of earth and sky. And here is what few people know: the quetzal cannot survive in captivity. Not because it cannot adapt, but because it refuses. It is said that when captured, the quetzal stops eating and dies. That is why Guatemala, Mexico's neighbor, chose the quetzal as its national symbol and named its currency after it. And that is why losing the quetzal is not simply losing a bird. The cloud forest, the quetzal's only habitat, is shrinking rapidly due to climate change and deforestation. Protecting the quetzal means protecting cloud forests. Protecting cloud forests means protecting water sources for millions of people living below. In nature, everything is connected, and the quetzal is the most vivid living symbol of that truth. Most Americans are proud of the Grand Canyon as one of the world's greatest natural wonders. What few people know is that right next door, to the south, there is a canyon system that is larger, deeper, and in many ways stranger. Copper Canyon Barrancas del Cobre in the state of Chihuahua is a network of 6 separate canyons. Together, they are 4 times larger than the Grand Canyon, and the deepest point reaches 1,870 meters deeper than the Grand Canyon. The name copper comes from the copper-green color of canyon walls, covered in moss and lichen. But what makes Copper Canyon truly extraordinary is not its size. It is the Raramuri, also called Tarahumara people, who still live within these canyons, in villages with no electricity and no roads. Raramuri means light feet in their language, and that is an accurate description. They are the greatest endurance runners on Earth. Christopher McDougall's book Born to Run, recounting a journey to Copper Canyon to understand the Raramuri, changed how the entire world thinks about running and what the human body is capable of. Copper Canyon is proof that nature's greatest wonders are not always the most famous ones. The Chihuahuan Desert is the largest desert in North America, spanning both Mexico and the United States, covering an area nearly the size of Western Europe. But this is not the Sahara. This is not a desert of endless sand. This is a desert of rock, of colossal cacti, of bare hills turning deep purple at sunset, of summer rainstorms that arrive violently for 20 minutes and disappear as if they never happened. The Chihuahuan Desert is one of the world's most biodiverse deserts. Over 3,500 plant species exist here, many found nowhere else on the planet. Agave, the source of tequila and mezcal, grows naturally here, with over 200 different agave species in the Chihuahuan Desert. And when rain comes sudden, fierce the desert blooms within 48 hours. What looked like dead land in the morning stands up in the afternoon with millions of wild flowers. The desert is not a place without life. It is a place where life has learned to wait. In the grasslands and deserts of northern Mexico lives a small animal that can teach us something profound about language, society, and what we think we know about animal intelligence. The prairie dog is not a dog. It is a rodent, related to ground squirrels, but the name comes from the bark-like warning call it uses. And here is what makes it extraordinary. The prairie dog communication system is one of the most complex animal languages ever documented. Linguist Kon Slobodchikov spent 30 years studying prairie dog calls and discovered they do not merely issue warnings, they describe approaching predators across multiple dimensions: shape, color, size, speed of movement. Prairie dogs live in underground towns, prairie dog towns, that can stretch dozens of kilometers and hold millions of residents. Their tunnels are engineered with sleeping chambers, eating areas, nurseries, and even listening rooms. Entrances built up higher to prevent flooding. Prairie dogs have declined over 98% in Mexico over the past century because people regarded them as pests damaging agricultural land. But when prairie dogs disappear, entire ecosystems collapse with them. They are ecosystem engineers, controlling vegetation, improving soil, and providing food for burrowing owls, prairie falcons, rattlesnakes, and dozens of other species. Prairie dogs remind us that in nature, nothing is small and unimportant. And their language reminds us that intelligence can exist in forms we never imagined until someone takes enough time to listen. Baja California is one of the geographically strangest places in the world. A narrow peninsula averaging just 80 kilometers wide, but over 1,200 kilometers long, sandwiched between the Pacific Ocean to the west and the Sea of Cortez to the east. Those two bodies of water could not be more different. The Pacific, cold, wild, with large swells, sea fog, and sea lions sleeping on rocks. The Sea of Cortez, warm, clear, calm, with shimmering turquoise and coral reefs below. And in between is the Sonoran Desert, with giant saguaro cacti that can grow 15 meters tall and live over 200 years. Baja California is where gray whales come to breed each year. They migrate from the cold waters of Alaska, a 16,000-kilometer round trip, to give birth in the warm lagoons of the south. In those lagoons, you can kayak beside a 35-ton whale. And sometimes, a calf will swim close and let you touch it. That does not happen anywhere else on Earth with the frequency it happens here. Baja California is also where you can drive for 1 hour and pass through 3 entirely different climates. This is not one place. This is 3 worlds compressed into one narrow peninsula. There is a moment that happens twice a year at Chichen Itza, and the Maya calculated it to happen exactly this way over 1,000 years ago. At the spring and autumn equinoxes, as the sun descends to the afternoon horizon, shadow begins moving along the northern face of the El Castillo pyramid. Step by step, the shadow forms the shape of a colossal serpent descending from the pyramid's peak. When it reaches the base, the shadow connects with a massive stone serpent head already carved in place. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is returning to Earth. El Castillo has 365 steps, 1 for each day of the year. The largest Mesoamerican ball court here was designed with acoustics so extraordinary that a single hand clap at one end creates an echo that sounds like a harpy eagle call at the other end, 150 meters away. This is not accidental. This is deliberate acoustic engineering from a civilization 1,000 years ago. The sacred cenote, the holy sinkhole, sits right beside. Here the Maya conducted sacrificial rituals. Not only human sacrifice, but gold, jade, ceramics, and their most precious objects cast into the water. The sacred cenote was not a place of fear. For the Maya, it was the gateway to communicate with underground deities, and the objects cast into it were gifts, not punishments. One thing rarely discussed: Chichen Itza was not a pure Maya city. Archaeological evidence shows the strong presence and influence of Toltec people from central Mexico, as if 2 cultures decided to merge rather than confront each other. Chichen Itza reminds us that Mesoamerica was not a collection of sealed civilizations, but a network of trade, ideas, and influence, stretching thousands of kilometers. If you want to understand the contradiction of modern Mexico in its clearest and most painful form, come to Tulum. On cliffs overlooking the Caribbean, Maya temples stand built around the 13th century, one of the few Maya cities built directly on the coast. Below are perfect turquoise water and flawless white sand beaches. This is one of Mexico's most beautiful landscapes. 20 years ago, Tulum was a small fishing village. Today, it is one of the world's most expensive and famous tourist destinations, called the world's wellness capital, paradise for the health conscious. And here is the reality of Tulum today. Thousands of hotels, villas, and clubs built without sewage treatment systems. Wastewater seeps directly into the cenotes below. Coral reefs die from contamination. Local people Maya, whose families have lived here for generations, can no longer afford to rent homes in their own village. The people who come here to connect with themselves and live consciously are building a system that pushes indigenous people to the margins. Tulum is a question without easy answers. How do you share beauty with the world without letting that beauty be consumed to exhaustion by the world? Off the coast of Isla Mujeres in Holbox, from June to September, the largest thing in the ocean arrives. The whale shark is the largest fish on Earth, reaching 18 meters long, weighing up to 20 tons. But despite that size, it is a gentle filter feeder swimming with mouth wide open to filter plankton and small fish. When a whale shark swims beneath you, its shadow blocks all the sunlight. It moves slowly and serenely, as if it does not realize you are there, or knows you are there, but does not care. Swimming with whale sharks is one of the rarest natural experiences still available on Earth. But here is the problem. Isla Mujeres in summer months is becoming overwhelmed. Hundreds of boats surrounding the whale sharks. Thousands of tourists jumping into the water simultaneously. These giant, gentle creatures are being stressed by the very people who came to admire them. And the question Mexico must answer is one no country has a good answer to. How do you conserve something while allowing people to experience it? Jacques Cousteau, who explored the ocean more than anyone in the 20th century, once called the Sea of Cortez the world's aquarium. And he was understating it. The Sea of Cortez sits between the Baja California Peninsula and mainland Mexico, a relatively small body of water containing extraordinary biodiversity. Over 900 fish species live here, more than any comparable body of water in the world. Blue whales, the largest animals ever to exist in Earth's history, weighing up to 180 tons, come here to feed. Dolphins, sea lions, giant manta rays, bluefin tuna. This is a body of water where, if you jumped in without prior knowledge, you might not know which planet you were on. The Sea of Cortez formed roughly 5 million years ago when the Baja Peninsula separated from the mainland. That geological separation created a nearly enclosed marine environment, and from that, evolution produced species found nowhere else. The vaquita is one of those species. The world's smallest porpoise, just 1.5 meters long, lives only in the northern corner of the Sea of Cortez. Current estimated population: fewer than 10 individuals worldwide. Mexico's Caribbean coast, the Riviera Maya, is one of the world's most visited tourist destinations. But the most important thing to know about Mexico's Caribbean coast is not the resorts or the beaches. It is what is happening beneath the surface. The Mesoamerican Barrier Reef, the world's second largest coral reef, running from Mexico down through Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, is dying. Pollution from hotel sewage, rising sea temperatures, and tourist sunscreen are bleaching coral and destroying ecosystems that have existed for thousands of years. But the Caribbean coast is also the site of natural stories almost too beautiful to believe. At Celestún, a lagoon on the western Yucatan Peninsula, thousands of pink flamingos live. Their pink color is not their natural color, they are born white. The pink comes from the small shrimp and algae rich in beta-carotene that they eat. The flamingo is the color of what it eats, a metaphor for how environment shapes the creature living within it. And every rainy season, the massive leatherback sea turtle, the world's largest turtle, weighing up to 900 kilograms, comes ashore on Mexican beaches at night to lay eggs. They have done this for millions of years. And today, they must compete with light from hotels, noise from clubs, and debris on the beach. We have traveled through pyramids and forests, deserts and cenotes, festivals and historical wounds, ancient deities and new questions. And what is most clear, after all that journey, is Mexico cannot be summarized. It is not one story. It is dozens of stories happening simultaneously, sometimes contradicting each other, sometimes completing each other. The story of a civilization erased and still living. The story of a country poor in economics, but so rich in identity that many people choose to stay even when they have the opportunity to leave. The story of the world's most beautiful coastlines being destroyed by the very people who came to love them. Mexico does not give you the comfort of simple answers. It gives you something far more valuable. It gives you questions you will keep thinking about identity, about history, about nature, about the price of progress, about what it means to live on land that holds thousands of years of memory. If you want to explore places that are not only beautiful to see, but meaningful to understand, follow the channel for more journeys ahead. Thank you for watching.